Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from our coffee break, just in time for starting our second session, which will be about the future of work, the skills, the mindset, and the adaptation we need in such a transformative era that we live in. May I just offer some insights from the latest World Economic Forum's research? They say that they found that 23% of all jobs will be changed by technology and automation already by 2027, with 69 million new job roles being created and 83 million job roles expected to be displaced. With Greece, like much of Europe, facing a growing skills gap, we will discuss, together with our esteemed panel that I will introduce in a moment, how coordinated efforts across the EU and national levels can address these challenges, ensuring Europe's economic growth and competitiveness. We will also explore how businesses, governments, and individuals can better prepare for the future, reshaping their mindsets and fostering new skill sets that are essential to thriving in this rapidly changing landscape, and doing so in an ethical manner. So let me welcome our distinguished speakers, our distinguished specialists who will be the speakers of this session. Our first speaker is going to be Joost Korte, former Director General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion at the European Commission. Mr. Korte is a recently retired senior EU official with extensive experience as director at different departments and institutions of the European Commission. With a background in European law, he possesses a profound understanding of EU policies and decision-making, and we are really honored to have him here with us today. Welcome. Please take a seat. Our second speaker is Theoni-Andrea Stylianou, Manager for Human Capital Advisory, People and Culture at RSM Greece. Ms. Stylianou is an expert in HR strategy, executive search and selection, and organizational performance. She has extensive experience in the Greek market, successfully identifying and placing executive at all levels, and leads international RSM initiatives, bringing global insights to local clients. She is also a certified creative problem-solving facilitator. Welcome, Ms. Stylianou. And our third speaker in this panel, who is right now on his way because he went to the wrong museum, but he will join us soon, is Dr. Ioannis Thanos, Assistant Professor of Management at Athens University of Economics and Business. Dr. Thanos has also taught in the UK and has received 8 Best Teacher Awards across 4 universities. Additionally, he has extensive experience as an international corporate trainer and event speaker on management, creativity, and the future of skills, while his work is published in top academic journals and presented at major international conferences. So we will soon have the joy to welcome him as well. But until he comes, we can still start and keep our timeline. So, Mr. Korte, I think you are going to tell us about why strengthening Europe's human capital is a precondition for growth and competitiveness and how this can be achieved. Please.
So, yes, thank you very much for inviting me here. Like many speakers before, very happy to be here, and I think the Chamber should really be congratulated for choosing this topic on a day like today, when we're all in huge suspense. I'm also proud because I think I'm probably the only one in this room who is neither Swedish nor Greek. And that, I think, is also, a token to the openness of the Chamber. But I have strong roots in both countries, so don't worry. I have made a few slides. I don't know if they are, there they are. To essentially underline the message that already came out, I think, a couple of times in the earlier panel about the importance of human capital, the importance of the people, and the importance of skills in these transitions that we are going through. I've been working on this issue in Brussels for quite a long time, And what I find fascinating to see is that this issue moved up from what I could say like a nice to have to an absolutely strategic necessity. And to underline that, I did these slides, which, as far as I can say, can also be given to you after the meeting. Some of them contain figures, which are maybe useful for you. The first slide is actually about Ursula von der Leyen in her so-called political guidelines, her program for the next 5 years, what she says about the importance of this topic. She brings in this quote, it's a little quote from her political guidelines from the 18th of July, a great sense of urgency on the issue of skills and human capital. And she links it also very strongly with competitiveness, that this is an essential condition to have a competitive economy. And she brings in education, of course, which is the starting point, where everything starts, that people have the right skills and the right competences to become successful later. But then also, of course, once you have a job, lifelong learning, or now we tend to call it more upskilling and reskilling, also are important. The second slide is also another quote, where she brings in an element that you should like a lot, which is namely that we have to bring in much more than we do today in our policy making about skills and education, the interest of business. It's been lacking a bit, certainly I think in the educational community, which tend to follow its own logic. And that it is important for the future that the two branches work much closer together, that the education community gets a much better understanding what is actually needed from people when they graduate. Listen to the company, she says here, on what they actually need. And that EU support for this, which is quite substantial if you look at the funding that's available, should be much closer linked to the needs of the labor market and to those sectors of the economy that are crucial for the greening, the carbon neutral economy, and for digital. And I'm sure here in this room there are a lot of you who are precisely working in those sectors. As a concrete measure to give this operational follow-up, the President of the Commission also appointed a Vice President in her Commission, specifically for skills. So that is also, I think, a proof of how important this issue is considered at all the levels. Mrs. Minzatu, I think she's called, will be the Executive Vice President for Skills and People in the next Commission that should normally start on the 1st of December. My next slide is about Draghi. Was also mentioned a couple of times before, rightly so in my view. This is different stuff. This is not a speech. This is a real report, and Mr. Draghi is a professor. So you have to sit and read it, and it's not easy reading. I think if you have all the annexes, it's more than 400 pages. I read the executive summary, which I think is 65 pages, which was already quite an investment. But this is different stuff. This is not easy political talking. This is really an economic analysis underpinned by a lot of statistical information, which I think is extremely well done, and which will also, I think, dominate a lot of the political discussions about this and other issues in the coming years. So I can also advise for those who haven't yet read it, really try to read it yourself, ask somebody in your company to really look at it, because I am sure this will matter a lot in the coming years. He makes in his broad analysis also a very clear link between human capital, skills, and the issue of competitiveness of the European Union, and also focuses a lot on the need for businesses. And here are a few figures which show you how difficult the situation actually today already is. Now, I'd be very interested also in your views later on, whether you can corroborate his view. He says that 25% of European companies cannot find the people with the right skills. 50% of the companies have major difficulties in finding these people. And 77% of the companies, they say that the newly recruited people, so freshly from school or university, do not have the required skills. And 60% of the companies say that the lack of skills in the digital area, in the ICT sector, is a real barrier to further investment. So the picture is quite somber. He then also combines this in a way with another trend in the EU economy that we see, which is aging and the declining population. Somewhere else in the 65 pages, he says that according to his scenarios, by 2050, Europe will lose 2 million people every year in the working age. 2 million people less every year in the age bracket between 20 and 65. Which is the statistical definition for the working people. Other scenarios say that today it is already 1 million less every year. And I think also in Greece, the population does go down. In other countries as well. Overall, I think in Europe, the situation is less dramatic, but there are already pockets. So the scenarios here are also quite worrying, and certainly a lot less positive than they are in the United States, where the population is still growing. China is also shrinking very fast, so that is then maybe a bit of good news. My other slide is even a bit more about numbers, looking at the basic digital skills that are needed. According to his figures, 42% of Europeans lack those basic digital skills. I don't know how you define this. I now managed, after my retirement, to do this PowerPoint myself. So I suppose that can be defined as a basic digital skill. Before I had people to do this for me, but now, and I can assure you, if you buy a MacBook, it's perfectly doable. But 37% of the people in the workforce also lack basic digital skills. And then the job vacancies that are there are very much concentrated in the clean tech manufacturing sector, where the job vacancy rate doubled between 2019 and 2023, and that 25% of the labor shortages are in those sectors, which are the ones that we need to move to a carbon neutral economy, and those are the ones that we need to remain competitive vis-à-vis the United States and China and other competitors. Here I have a graph which is probably a bit complicated to sum up, but again, you can have a look at it later. This shows you, taken again from the Draghi report, where the skill shortages and the job vacancies are. So I don't know if this corresponds also to your feeling in Greece, but I think so. And you can see that they go up everywhere. In all the sectors, all the important sectors of the economy, you have this shortage in people, which is felt very, very strongly. Now, you can also take a more positive look on this. If I look at the Greek economy, it's of course the unemployment has gone down dramatically. I looked at the figures. It was 18% 5 years ago. Now it's 10% or even below 10%. So this is a major success, I think, of the Greek business and the Greek government over 5 years to go from 18 to 10%. So it also shows that, well, more people are working, but we still have too few because you see these job vacancy rates. The unemployment rate in the EU average is only 6%. So compared to that, you see Greece is still on the high side, and there are member states where it's zero. I know in the Czech Republic there's zero unemployment. A bit more detail, only to inspire you to think and maybe also be a bit provocative. The European Commission does these scoreboards, as they are called, every year, about every member state. And there's also actually, for those of you who have the basic digital skills, to go on the Eurostat website, the statistical office of the EU, and you can compare countries. It's extremely well done. I didn't want to do that. I don't want to compare Sweden with Greece, because it's not a nice story for you. But you can also compare Greece with Italy. You can compare Greece with the average. And there you can see that actually Greece has improved a lot. This is only you. And you see these are the so-called the major indicators on which are relevant for our discussion today. If you are in red, then you are really far below the target and far below the average in the EU. But you see that there are also yellow, which means weak but improving, and white, which is basically on average. And then you are even on one better than among the best performers. The one thing I wanted to single out is the first one. the first one, which is the adult participation in learning during the last month, in terms of the population aged in the working age 25 to 64. Now, you should know that the aim of the EU is that 60% of the workforce should at least have one training every year. Today, according to the figures, it's 35% only that have one training per year. People working, I'm talking about people who are working. In Greece, it's only 15%. Yeah. Submit is to you how you, as business, deal with this. This is well below the target. I think Greece has set itself as a target for 2030, 40%, but it's still a long way to go, from 15 to 40%. So how is it possible that so few people working have their skills improved on an annual basis? I've seen somewhere that there is a big program of the Public Employment Service here, DIPA, that would bring 500,000 people into training by 2030. So something is being done about it. And then finally, what can we do? What can we actually do? What can you do as business to make sure that you have the skilled people that you need for your investments and for your competitiveness? Okay, the first one is a no-brainer. Investments are needed in human capital, like they are needed in machines. It's an investment in the future of your company. Of course, you know this, and it should be treated in the same way. I looked at a few examples. In Sweden, the Tjänstledighet för studier, and in Denmark, the second one, which is even more difficult to pronounce. The government has actually opened up a lot of money, made available a lot of money for companies to give their staff paid leave for training. In Sweden, it's up to 1 year. You can take leave for 1 year, and you are compensated by the government. In Denmark, I think the government provides a grant to the company, and the company then pays the person who goes on leave. Would it be an idea to create for every worker an individual account, which gives him or her the right to do some training, either time-wise or money-wise? The Commission and the European Union has actually made a recommendation on this point. Of course, these trainings should be relevant for the business. There is a lot of money available at EU and national level, and I think this is also good to remind you of. The next one is this better cooperation between the education establishment and business. I think this is really crucial. You are very well positioned in Greece with a minister who came from the education and who is now Labour Minister, Mrs. Kerameus. So she will have a good feeling for this, and I think this is really key. At the EU level, there is a program called Large-Scale Partnership that promotes these cooperations. Mostly at the regional level, there's no one-size-fits-all. There's an example, for instance, which I use many times. It's Ferrari in the north of Italy, which cannot find any more people to work in their factories, and they are sitting together with the educational schools and institutions in that area, together with the social partners and the trade unions, to have a better understanding of what the needs are. Just to generate some further ideas about this. Skills forecasting, I mean, what are the skills of the future? For some it's clear, in other sectors it's not so clear. What kind of people do you need? And inject this into the planning and speak about it and mobilize forces that these training courses are set up. And then finally, how best to retain staff. We can have a discussion about brain drain and also brain gain. A lot of people leave, people who are well trained, most of the time at the expense of the companies. They have this perfect training and then they leave because they can make more money elsewhere, or they see less perspective in Greece than in another country. This is obviously also an issue that needs to be tackled. Von der Leyen says a lot of things about this, including what she calls, I think, a right to stay. There is no obligation to leave your country. In fact, it's not even an objective of the EU that people leave their country. It's not at all in the interest. These are individual choices by people who see that they have a better perspective in another country, and mostly actually in the US. make it worse. If only they were to stay in Europe, but many of them go to the US because somehow the climate and the perspective and the qualities of life are better there. And that ends my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Korte, for unlocking the European Commission's approach to the much-needed reskilling and upskilling and giving a lot of examples as well. Now on to you, Ms. Stylianou. I understand that you will address another very important aspect of the future of work that we do not hear so much about. How can our leaders not only help bridge the skills gap, but do so with integrity and purpose? Please.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this very interesting and insightful conversation today. I will be taking on from where Mr. Korte left this discussion, and we will be talking about and navigating how can leaders bridge the skills gap with integrity and purpose in the evolving future of work. And of course, in order to navigate this topic, we need a compass. And each one of us is born with a compass, an ethical compass that guides our actions and decisions. And this compass is what shows us the way and the direction we wish and should go towards. In order to achieve this, we are, however, influenced by different internal and external factors like the experiences we acquire as we grow up, the cultural norms we grow up in, and the people that surround us. So, as the world evolves and as we want to grow the skills that will make us relevant in the future, what comes to my mind is that the basis of this should be a strong ethical compass for each one of us. And my interpretation has 5 key elements. The first one is the true north, the values, the core values and integrity, the unchanging principles that ground us. And as leaders, it is crucial that we stay true to these values as we are disrupted by different challenges. Then we have the compass needle, which always steers towards the true north. And the needle represents the commitment to aligning our actions with ethics. So as leaders, we need to make sure that we adjust our actions in order to stay on our path towards an ethical true north. Then we have east and west. These directions showcase the openness and adaptability. Ethical leaders who focus on these values are open to different perspectives, listen to others, and therefore make more informed decisions. Then we have South, symbolizing accountability, humility, and responsibility. Leaders who are grounded in these values continuously learn, and this helps them know their limits and trust the opinions of others. And finally, we have the compass circle, representing unity and interconnectedness, which is very important given the fact that as leaders, our decisions affect others as well, so we ought to make them ethical. The way our ethical compass is set basically defines how we grow the skills for the future. If we build the skills on an ethical compass and on an ethical base, then we will achieve sustainable growth and development. We need to basically think, if we want to grow our skills in the use of AI and analyzing big data, are we doing this with a basis of ethical use of technology? Or if we want to build our leadership skills and our skills for social influence, are we doing this with a scope that benefits the whole society and not just our individual benefits? Or, for example, if we want to manage people, we want to learn how to manage people effectively, are we doing this in a base of trust and transparency and equity? as leaders, we need to answer these questions in order to help ourselves develop the skills of the future, but also support our teams to cultivate the right skills for the future. And we should set the way and our compass to lead us on an ethical path to leadership. So, in order to achieve this, what needs to be done? We sort of need to challenge the social status quo in order to basically help the people around us, because we're talking about people, lay the right foundations for sustainable growth and development. And perhaps it is understandable by all, but in today's world, we focus a lot on the immediate future and the instant gratification. For example, how many followers will I gain, or what the results of this year would be, or the profit of my project, or when will my next raise be. However, this gives us a 1 to 2 year time frame, right? On the other hand, we are asked at the moment to develop skills and ethical skills and values that need a lot of time, need long-term planning in order to be part of who we are, rooted in who and how we act. So, as leaders, we are called upon our personal accountability. It is very important to address the fact that, on the one hand, we need to make immediate decisions and take action for urgent issues like the rising use of technology in order for it to be used on an ethical basis, and on the other hand, to help our people and ourselves build long-term development plans which will help us leave this world better than we found it. To do this, we must first and foremost harness the power of our actions and act as an example for others. The way we lead people helps them also build a long-term plan of developing their skills and their values. So this builds sustainable growth and development for everyone. And of course, balancing the immediate demands with long-term commitment leads us to a crossroad. This crossroad means basically the complex problems that we are asked to solve in today's world. And remember, we have our ethical compass, so this is very important as we move forward. All of us, in our daily lives, we are asked to answer complex questions, questions that have need to develop our skills of continuous learning. We actually want to build new skills in order to approach these complex problems. And because the future is being shaped today by the actions we do today, it is very important to make sure that these actions and the skills we use for our current situation, but also for the future, are based on this ethical compass. So I want to ask you if I can have a volunteer. Is there something new you are learning at the moment, a new skill, knowledge, or perspective that you are exploring at the moment? Are there any volunteers who want to share something on a personal or a professional basis? Yes.
So I recently moved to Greece, so I'm very much learning how business works in this country with the cultural perspective.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing this. So this is a great example of how leaders can cultivate this learning mindset for themselves, but also for the people around them. When grounded in ethics, when we know why we are building these skills and this scope has a collective impact, positive impact for many people, this helps us bridge the skills gap whilst developing the new skills based on strong ethics. So we need to ask ourselves, given that I have built a strong ethical compass, given that I am working on building my continuous learning mindset, what are the skills that I need to develop in order to stay relevant and productive and navigate this uncharted environment? The ideal answer, of course, would be that we could cultivate and grow all the skills that have been announced as the most important for the future. However, we really need to consider that even Superman is a member of the Justice League, along with Batman and Aquaman and Wonder Woman. And all these heroes bring a different perspective to a complex problem, in solving a complex problem. So as these superheroes combine their powers, whilst they develop their skills and their knowledge and the way they need to act on different challenges, they do this in order to make this, to solve problems and help people, basically. In the same way, we also need to learn, how can we learn from each other? How can we effectively exchange perspectives and share our opinions and collaborate whilst we are building these skills that are crucial and essential for today and for the future? So it's, and something to add on that that's very important. We do not only want to, because we're talking about teams here, so we do not only want to make sure that on a personal level we develop the skills that are important for us, but how can these skills be combined whilst everyone brings their unique perspective in order for a team to work effectively and in order to be a member of a powerful Justice League. So at this moment, as leaders, we need to think, when I advise someone to grow specific skills for the future, or when we select which are the most important skills for the future, it's very dependent on what the person we're talking to wants to achieve, what their goals are, what their purpose is, where do they want to go. And on the same way, we need to address and assess, what is my purpose and what skills should I develop to eventually become an effective and a powerful member of a Justice League. This journey starts with how we bring people into our organizations. So in the executive search and selection projects we undertake, and in our team as well, we focus on a skills-based recruitment approach, meaning that we do not only focus on the technical skills that need to be completed and to match the role or the position, but how this candidate, how a new leader can bring their and match their values and purpose with the organization's goals. For example, if a company aims to be a sustainability leader in the next decade, we need to ask ourselves and consider, what does this leader need to have in order to be able to navigate this purpose, to train, to communicate this purpose, to organize this purpose, and most importantly, to add value to this specific organization and purpose. And how their unique perspective can drive this vision forward. And these questions are, of course, very difficult and challenging to answer because we are talking about assessing the ethical compass of people. But if we manage to do this, and if we focus on doing this, the decision-making and the purpose of the individual will match the purpose of the organization. And this will bring long-lasting value for both sides. So does my magnetic field, the things that surround me and that guide my decisions, match and align with what the organization needs and wants to achieve? So we are all born with a compass, but it is up to us to decide what the magnetic field around us will be, what will be affecting our decisions. And it is up to us to decide what the true north will be, these unchanging principles that will guide us, and what actions, what elements will move the needle towards the true north or not. So as we do this, let's choose a true north that is based on integrity and purpose, and let's become an example for others around us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stylianou. This was a truly unique dimension, I think, when we talk about the future of works. Talking about purpose and ethics is really something that we usually miss. So thank you very much. Now on to you, Dr. Thanos. I understand you will take us on a journey towards 2030, right?
Exactly.
So let's see if technology will have eliminated everything or we will survive.
Okay. Okay, so hello, I hope you can hear me very loud and clear and so on. Everything okay? Okay, thank you. So my name is Ioannis Thanos, and today we will discuss for a few minutes about two major things actually. Number one, how new technological developments, trends and so on are likely to have an impact on the business landscape and on ourselves. That's the first part of the presentation. And the second part of the presentation, and I think I will move in this side, I think it's better. The second part of the presentation actually has to do with what kind of skills we need to develop in order to survive and have a sustainable competitive advantage and thrive in the new normal, as we academics say. Let's go slide by slide, and I'm sorry for turning my back, by the way. So these are a few technological trends. I'm sure that you are familiar with most of them. They are considered to be the key forces driving change, as we say. We have machines which learn, artificial intelligence, it is called. We have big data, organizations which can use big data in order to make decisions, and we need to collect and analyze those data. We have Internet of Things, robots. I'm sure that you are familiar with the recent presentation of Elon Musk, who basically suggested that the product of the future is going to be a robot, and all of us will have a robot in our homes in order to do the cooking, the ironing, and so on. I'll be the first one who will buy this robot, to be honest with you. Okay, and we also have all those technologies. So some of those technologies, you know, we say that they are part of the fourth industrial revolution. Some academics say that we are already in the fifth industrial revolution. Some academics say that we are somewhere between the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution. I have no idea, to be honest with you. The one thing that I know for sure, though, is that these technological trends are about to influence or have already influenced the way that we do business. And they have transformed the business landscape. So that's point number one. Point number two, we already seem to understand that those technologies are about to disrupt our jobs. Okay? And when we say disrupt, they will either eliminate some of our jobs, some jobs in the future will no longer exist, like manual jobs. And number two, they are likely to create new jobs. So the important thing to have in our mind is what we, as employees of the future, should do in order to survive with all those technologies and so on. And the story is that we need to develop skills. Okay, but the point is which skills. So in the following slides, I'm going to show you results from two studies. One of them is from McKinsey. I'm sure that you're familiar with McKinsey, strategy consultants and so on. They're doing a lot of studies which demonstrate which are the important skills of the future. And the second is going to be a few findings from the Future of Jobs report, which was published last year, I think. So let's go one by one. We have a study here from McKinsey. We have the skills. We have 5 categories of skill with different colors. In the red color, we have the physical and manual skills. And you will see that over the years, they're about to become less important because machines will do all those manual things. We have the basic cognitive skills, like basic literacy, higher cognitive skills, like creativity, and creative thinking, analytical thinking, and so on. Social and emotional skills, leadership, ethical leadership, like Theoni said. And we also have technological skills. And what McKinsey did, and that's an old study, but it's a very important study in the literature, they created a 2x2 matrix. Okay? So in the vertical axis, what you see over there is the perceived importance of some skills today. And the horizontal axis, what you see over there is the expected future skill needed. And actually, we can say a lot of things about this slide and so on. For me, the most important, I think we should focus on the upper right of the 2x2 matrix. And if you see the colors and so on, yes, project management is important, but creativity and critical thinking, it seems that in the years to come, they're going to be more and more and more important. And these are so-called soft or people skills. Technology is also important, advanced IT and so on. Leadership is very important. So what I would keep from this slide is that the most important skills of the future, it looks like that it's going to be soft skills, leadership skills. Okay, and that's the first study. Now, the second study, published by the World Economic Forum, and I think this is the most important survey and study ever done in the literature. The World Economic Forum, for those of you who are not familiar with the Future of Jobs report, basically they published every 2 years a study where they investigate what will be the skills of the future. And they sent a survey, a questionnaire, to members of organizations who fill in this questionnaire. The first Future of Jobs report was published in 2016, and since then, every 2 or 3 years, there is a Future of Jobs report which is being published. Now, the last one, the most recent one, it was published last year. I think it was May 2023. 45 countries participated, and more than 800 organizations participated in this study. And they came up with several conclusions. The most important one, at least to my mind, is this one, okay? Which are the top 10 skills of 2025. They are not ordered, all of them, they're not ranked, all of them are important. And I'm going to highlight a few of them, like analytical thinking, active learning, complex problem solving. We live in a world where basically we have to solve all the time problems, and they are complex and they're strategic in nature. In our effort to solve a problem, most of the times we create another problem to solve. Creativity, leadership, technology use, technology design, and so on. It's important to understand that basically we have two types of skill. On the one hand, we have hard skills like technology, and the color, I think, is like purple, at least to my eyes. It might be the light right now, but it looks purple to me, which has to do with technology. And on the other hand, it's soft skills, people skills. But from the 10 skills that you see over there, 8 of them, they have to do with people, and 2 of them, they have to do with technology. So in the technology area that we live in, it's not only the technology, but it's how we develop our skills. Now, the question is, do we as employees have these skills? And the answer based on the research is that unfortunately only 50%, 1 out of 2 people in the European Union have the skills that I showed you in the previous slides, either digital, technological skills, or human, people, soft skills. So obviously in the years to come, we are about to see probably the biggest upskilling and reskilling ever that we have ever seen. And all of us, we need to seriously consider if we have those skills and what can we do in order to develop those skills in the years to come. I'm going to close my presentation with something which I believe is even more important than skills, and this has to do with mindset, because we keep saying that we need to develop our skills. And all studies, including my studies that I do at the Athens University of Economics and Business, all the time is about skills. But for me, we need to go one step back and try to think about something else. And this has to do with mindset. You know, in 10 years from now, we might need other skills. And actually, right now, we don't know what will be the skills for the future. One thing that we know for sure is that we need a mindset which is called growth mindset. If we develop our growth mindset, or learning mindset, as we say, then we will be in position to develop any skill that we might need in the years to come. And what you see over there is a slide which comes from one of my favorite books, which is authored by Carol Dweck. Carol Dweck is professor of psychology at the University of Stanford. If you want to read one book in your life, actually read this book, because based on research, what Carol Dweck does is she separates people into 2 different mindsets. We have people who have fixed mindset. Those people believe that they cannot develop their creativity. Those people believe that everything has to do with luck. Those people believe that you cannot become smarter. And on the other hand, we have people who have a learning mindset. Those people learn to unlearn, as we say. Those people, they see challenges as something very good. Those people believe that you can develop your soft skills. And this is where we want to be. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thanos. It is quite comforting to hear that we humans will still be needed in 2030.
I hope
And not
so.
only that, but it will be our very human skills that will make us
I think so.
employable and really valuable to the new reality. So thank you for that. Let's now drop into the questions, to have some questions here, and then we will take from the audience. I'll start with Mr. Korte. According to a study presented at the recent WEF discussion, again, the World Economic Forum for the third time, out of 53 million workers from across the world, less than 4%, 4, not 40, were upskilled by their companies during the past 2 years. So it seems that businesses really have a hard time in helping their people keep up with the required new skills. So the question is, could you provide any examples from your experience of how companies in Greece or in Sweden or elsewhere have successfully adapted their workforce and fostered lifelong learning to meet current and future demands?
Yeah, thanks. I think I said in my presentation that the target in the European Union is 60%. 60% of the staff should at least be trained once a year. Greece is now at 15.1%, according to the latest information, and the world is at 4%. I gather. So then Greece is still much better than the rest of the world, but far away from the 60%. And I think the target that Greece has set itself is 40, and 60 is then the EU average. So that's quite a poor performance. My own, I don't know, there are many studies have been done. Clearly, businesses need to step up and take this more seriously. And I think this was, in fact, the message from all three of us to the audience. But it's not easy. I don't want to give you the impression this is just, you do a training course for people once a year and you're okay. I think it has a lot to do also with the sort of the size of the company. We should never forget that 95%, I think, of the people in Europe who have a job, they work for small companies. So here we have a number of big companies, and I would really be interested to listen to you also how you see this. But they invest, I think, pretty well. And some of the, really big companies, they even have their own schools. But of course, the supply chain has all these SMEs. And if you have a company of 10 or 12 people, how can you do upskilling? Because you can't lose 1 minute your staff. I think this is the essential problem. How you get into that world of small and medium enterprises where, again, most of the people are working. And that's, I put a few ideas on the slide. I think this idea that you make an entitlement, maybe even by law, an entitlement for training.
Right to education.
Yes, a right to education we already have, but there's no legal right to be trained, to be upskilled and reskilled. Of course, this will need funding, this will need investment, and companies need to be helped. In France, they have this individual learning account. So it's obligatory. Everybody has it. The results are not all that positive, because people then tend to go. They have to go once a year. And then they go for language courses, or they go for courses that are not immediately relevant for the company. Why is it also so complicated? I think the speakers after me demonstrated how complicated it is, because it depends very much on your company and on the development of the skills. And soft skills is not something all that easy to learn. This is really requires a lot of investment. But nevertheless, we have no choice to do it. According to the OECD figures, I think in the US and in China and in Japan, the percentage is a lot higher. So we are really lagging big time behind, and surely this has an impact on our competitive edge.
Thank you, Mr. Korte. Very interesting things to reflect on that you mentioned here. Let's go to Ms. Stylianou. Based on your experience, continuing this discussion in some way, are businesses effectively mapping the skills of their workforce today to foster future-ready capabilities? Based on this, do you think that the Greek workforce already possesses the skills needed for the future, or should we prioritize further development?
Thank you for this question. It's actually complicated, but to be honest, what comes to my mind is that if we already possessed these skills, we wouldn't be here having this discussion. And on the other hand, if no one possessed these skills, then there would be no best practices and examples of how we can actually acquire them, which is very important. There there is a understanding nowadays, which is changing, is shifting, that human skills or people skills or soft skills or however you want to call them are more important than technical skills. However, there is a gap in actually identifying them and assessing them and actually helping our people understand how they can develop them. So there are tools and assessment that are used, for example, like in recruitment or in assessing the performance of our people, which are used by some companies. It's not a practice used by many companies, but it depends on where we want to put the focus. So if our companies compensate us or give us a bonus based on quantitative results, then we do not focus on developing the qualitative results that we want and how we develop our skills or our values. And we therefore do not create a mindset that helps towards this direction. So in Greece, there is a solid foundation of skills and of talent, but we need to focus a lot on how we train and help all professionals who are talented and who we want in our country and in our organizations to see their future and their development within our organizations and help them develop this continuous learning mindset that we've been talking about in order to be resilient and in order to create a better future for everyone.
So there is a lot of work to be done. That's what you are saying. And also, if you don't measure something, if you don't start by measuring where you stand, how can you develop, of course? Thank you very much. And let's go to you, Dr. Thanos. You mentioned in your presentation that people skills, in particular creativity, I heard critical thinking, will be key going forward. I have a three-pronged question for you, because you were late. The first one is, how do each one of us as individuals can develop critical thinking and creativity skills? The second one, how does the Greek education system reinforces or weakens the acquisition of such skills? Wow. And the third one is about the businesses. How can businesses drive the development of such skills in their workforce?
Okay.
3 dimensions.
3 dimensions, because I'm late. Okay. First of all, both of them work? Or
it works. And now you work.
This
you
one
have
works.
your,
Okay,
yes.
all right. So the first question was, how can we further develop...
How each one as individuals, yes. How
as
can
individuals.
How can I develop such skills?
Okay, creativity and critical thinking.
And
Okay,
people
I
skills
have
in
good
general.
news. Okay, it's very simple. Just come to the Athens University of Economics and Business. We offer courses, okay? Attend those courses, and after how long? I don't know, 1 year, you are ready, okay? So anyway, aside from that, I think that if we want to develop those skills, we need to try new things. Number one, we need to question things, and we need to do things that basically bring us out, as we say, of our comfort zone. The problem is that we don't question our lives. The problem is that we are inside the box and we take everything for granted, and we think that life is like this. We have to change what we do. That's point number one. Point number two, we need to meet people who have a different background from us. This will help us to develop our creativity. Actually. Number three, don't forget, come to the Athens University of Economics and Business. So, the second question was...
The Greek education system, does it reinforces or weakens the acquisition of such skills? I'm very curious to hear.
I hope that you're not recording right now. According to the data that we have from the studies that we have done at the Athens University of Economics and Business, small kids, they are creative when they are born.
A lot.
A lot.
Yes.
Those of you who have kids at home, you know that. Then they go to school, and then we put them inside the box.
Brain dead.
And exactly. And over the years, basically, we kill their creativity. This is what we do in this country, according to studies that we have done at the Athens University of Economics and Business. Generally speaking, this is what we do in other countries as well. And it has to do with the education system. So we need to change the fundamentals of the education systems. And the reason for this is that we tend to emphasize how to memorize things. We tend to emphasize how to find the one and right only solution to a problem. And, you know, memorizing and finding the one and only right solution to a problem goes against creativity and critical thinking. It's a killer.
It's a killer.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have to change the fundamentals, as we say, of the education system. Now, the
It was the businesses. How can the businesses drive the development of such skills in their workforce?
Now, if I say come again to the Athens University of
No,
Economics
no,
and
no, you
Business,
cannot
okay,
say
okay,
that.
okay, I stop. I think that it has to do with culture, and it has to do with whether, again, we question how we make decisions. Because in most organizations there is some kind of bureaucracy and we follow those rules. So what we should do,
Processes and so
yeah,
on.
and processes and so on. I'm not saying don't follow the processes.
No.
I'm just saying give some flexibility to people to start thinking outside of the box, and don't penalize people for making mistakes. Because if you want to be creative, you have to make mistakes. You cannot be innovative if you're not creative. You cannot be creative if you don't make mistakes. So give some space to people to make mistakes.
So don't demonize failure and give them space to experiment with new
Exactly.
things.
Without experimentation, you can't be innovative.
Okay, I have lots of good questions to continue, but I would like to see our audience now because I think it's a very interesting discussion. Do we have any questions from the audience, please? Be interactive.
There is one.
Yes? The microphone,
There's
please.
one at the back.
There. It's very far in the back.
Hello. I would like to put the parameter of migration and how this helps the skilled people. I mean, the migration that comes from Asia or from Africa for low-end workforce, or the European migration. I mean, Sweden may be lacking for doctors, and they can make a roadshow in Greece and they can found some doctors, or elsewhere. What this parameter of the internal migration in Europe or external from other countries will affect in the future of work?
Who wants to go first?
Of course, migration plays an important role in this whole discussion, but it's also at the same time extremely poisonous subject. So you can see from the papers that are circulated from the European Union and from member states that they always try to stay out of this because it's so politicized. But it's a matter of fact, I think, and generally accepted that one of the reasons why the United States economy is so much more booming than ours, and that the labor productivity of the American worker has grown so much better than ours, is immigration. They have a much more diverse society, and also I think people prepared to go an extra length because they come from places where they were unhappy and they want to have a better life. And I think this gives a huge injection into the economy. And I think we have done the same here in Europe for ages. I mean, if you look at our history, it's one great long list of migratory movements, and this will never stop, of course. So yes, I think it's important. Now, between the EU member states and from the outside is then again a bit of a different discussion. Between the EU member states, migration is very low. Right? If you look into the fact that you can actually, as an EU citizen, if you have a passport of one of the 27 member states, you can go anywhere you like, work, study, retire, and stay. This is, doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. So this is extremely precious. And if all the sort of opinion polls that are done, they select this, the Europeans find this the most important benefit of the EU, but still they don't actually use it that much. I think something like 3 or 4% only has never really taken off. But of course, again, the political discussion is a very different one. The whole Brexit mistake was made on false numbers of migration. What we see today is that, in fact, there is still migration in the EU, but people go back to where they came from. That's the biggest move. It's also interesting. Why? Because countries like Poland, but also, you know, Czechia, Slovakia, the Baltic countries, which people tended to leave, people go back because the situation in those countries has improved a lot. There's no point in doing a shitty job in glass houses in horticulture in the Netherlands when you can have a good job in Poland. So and then the population is going down in Europe. So the reservoir is basically empty. So the only possibility is then migration from third countries. And there, again, this is complicated stuff. There are also economic analyses that say that, in fact, the same problems that we are now having with our population will also happen with the second or the third generation of migrants. So cannot be a permanent solution. But if you look what member states are doing, they are all recruiting big time in third countries. They don't talk about this. I mean, I'm speaking too long, but one sort of anecdote that I want to share with you. The same day that Germany introduced border controls in the Schengen area to keep the illegal migrants out, the Chancellor was in Uzbekistan to negotiate an agreement to find people. Why? Because they have no train drivers, they have no truck drivers anymore in Germany, and they need them. So, and everybody's doing the same. The Germans are hyperactive recruiting, but then, of course, not the ones that come asylum seekers, but they want to find the people they really need. And this is very sort of, I don't like this discussion, but that's the reality. Behind the scenes, a lot is done.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Stylianou, want to complement, to add?
I didn't know all the background of the story, but from a business point of view, I think the population issue is very important and it's affecting everyone. It's one of the main factors why we are struggling so much to find talent, to attract and retain talent, especially in Greece, but in Europe as a whole. So it will be linking back to migration and to how we welcome and how we help people who have chosen a different country for their living to actually feel as if they are part of this country and develop the skills they will need in order to actually be able to be absorbed in the workforce. So I think this is definitely a challenge that we are facing and that we will need to be facing. And it also comes to my mind in regards to brain gain. Yeah. So,
yes.
but I don't know if we will be discussing it afterwards.
We don't have enough time, unfortunately, for that.
So I just want to add that
Please.
it is a matter of mindset, because if we feel that it's a matter of mindset and of the way that the world works in such a globalized way nowadays. So we need to address these issues and help our organizations and ourselves grow in a way that is adapting to the way the world works. So if we have a mindset in Greece that does not help people evolve and develop, we need to make sure we first change this in order to attract people and be able to cover positions and have evolving organizations.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Thanos, any last comment?
Any last comments? Although I'm not doing research on migration and so on, so I'm just expressing personal views and so on.
That's fine.
I think that in Greece we have a huge demographic problem. We all know that. Exactly. It became even worse during the financial crisis because several high-skilled people left the country. I don't remember the statistics I was reading last week. I think close to 1 million people, something like this. Probably, if I recall correctly, the number. Now, this creates huge pressure for all organizations because they cannot find the right people, attract the right people, and so on. So the point is how we move from, as you said, from brain gain to the opposite. Tax incentives could help to convince those people to come back to Greece, I think, and probably creating a culture where those people will be able to feel accepted and so on, and help them and teach them how to create a business. Will help a lot in order to deal with this situation.
Thank you very much. I think we need to close here. We don't have any more time. I thank you very much for the very useful discussion we have. I hope it was valuable for our audience as well. So it's time for another coffee break. Please be back 5 minutes to 7, please, because we're going to have our second keynote speaker then. Thank you.